Hey, so today I thought I'd show you something I've been working on. You might be familiar with my Core 4. I know a lot of people have Core 4s, but mine has to do with the customer journey, basically. And so if we look at this whiteboard and we start out with the four that are core, the first thing you're always going to do is deal with leads. Then this here, next thing we always try to do here is nurture. So we try to get leads. Then once we have them in our environment, we nurture them. And then we try to do calls to action to get them to actually purchase something within our environment. And then over here is once we have them, we actually have to then fulfill. And I actually look at this as onboarding. We have fulfillment and onboarding. So that's the core four. And so what I've been doing with a lot of the AI work that I do, when I do a blueprint for somebody, we take a look at all four of these sections of the customer journey and figure out which one kind of gives you the biggest stomach ache, right? Which one gives you the most pain. And it's not only that now, but I've actually changed my thought into not just being something to solve a pain, but what are the things that might have an impact and what are the things that would have a lower cost of change? Because it's not always just the change itself that has a cost or a problem to it. The cost of actually changing can be a negative on your business. And so what you want to find are the things that have a high impact, a low cost of change as far as implementing it, plus a lower cost of change for actually making the change in your business. If you have employees, it can be hard to accommodate some of the changes. It takes a brain shift or changing how they work. It's things like that. But I went one step further. When I was looking at this, the more I tried to figure out the right kind of AI solutions for people, the more I realized it's not just simply leads. Like if you say, yes, I've got a problem with leads, it's not always, you know, what I have doesn't work, or what I have has a gap and I hope AI can fill it. Sometimes it's I don't know, I don't do anything with leads. I don't know how to do leads. I don't know where AI fits. And then sometimes it's, I kind of am okay with my leads. I feel like they're a problem because I can't get into nurturing them. More often it's I can nurture somebody, but I don't know how to get them into a sale. I don't know how to actually get them to buy. And it's not really a sales problem. It's actually at the end of the nurture. So let me show you what I'm talking about. If we had a couple more things here, I think that each one of these parts of the journey, they have their own parts as well. There's sort of a flow to how you come up with what you're doing about leads or what you're doing about nurturing. So there's an idea which represents the what. Idea what? So I do this. So for everything, like when you're trying to figure out what it is you're going to do about lead management, about nurturing, you have to determine the what. What are you going to do? In some cases, nurturing is I'm going to actually meet them at the front door of the building, shake their hand, bring them in, walk them around. So there's this idea about what it means. Sometimes nurturing is just as simply as getting them onto some email sequence and sending the emails. So the second one, once you have an idea, you've got to figure out. You can see me checking my notes. This is that new to me, trying to come up with the right way to say these things. So the second part is the why. So what I mean by that is once you come up with an idea, you have to have a reason why. And that reason is what you actually communicate out. You communicate it out to your staff, you communicate it out to the people, your customers. And so when you are actually grabbing leads, you explain why you're doing what you do. Case in point, here's an example. If I'm going to give a lead magnet to somebody, a free PDF about AI, then that's my idea. I communicate that through advertising, through posts, through videos. I communicate that I have this thing for you, and here's what it does for you. So it's not just an idea to have a PDF. You actually have to think about why you have it. What benefit does it have for your customer? And you need to be able to communicate that. Once you've communicated it, then what happens? You actually have to do these things. You have to actually build the PDF. You actually, so you have the idea of what you want to do, and then you have the communication of that idea, and then you have the implementation of it. So you actually have to create the PDF, and you have to create the messaging, create the landing page, whatever it is that you're doing. And that is different than the communication aspect, because you could have the idea of creating a PDF, and then you could say, this is my why, this is why I want to create it, and I can tell people about it. But if you don't have a landing page to support it, or you don't have a good way of actually building a PDF, if you're just doing it in Notepad, AI can help you. AI can help you generate content. So you do your idea, you figure out the communication, the why, and then here's how you implement it. And that's where a lot of times AI can come in, as you can imagine. It comes into the implementation aspect. But I'm going to show you that it's more than that. The last thing is something that you might not consider. Bridge and what's next. So this is why this is important. Oops. You get all the way down and you've created a PDF and you've implemented your landing page and you've got the PDF ready to go. How do you get them into your nurturing? The nurturing can be a certain set of steps that happens, but to go from each one of these in the core four to the next one, there's actually a gap. And that gap needs to be bridged. You could kick butt on leads, but if you don't do something with a lead when you have them, then you're not into the nurture phase. You're not nurturing them. And the same thing, that's what happens a lot of times with sales, is if you're constantly nurturing and giving them good information, but you never do a call to action, you're never going to get a sale. Okay, never is absolute, but you know what I'm saying, is you have to have a bridge between nurture and sales. And the same thing, once you make the sale, you don't just walk away and go, hey, that was cool, I made money. It's like, no, you actually have to provide the thing. You actually have to do the work. And that can be an onboarding, or that can be providing a service, or whatever the case might be. And even on that one, there's a next. So let's talk about this for a second. When you are looking at creating something for your business, when you're looking at your business, it's not just looking at leads, nurture, sales, and fulfillment. It's looking at each one of these 16 things, and you go in this direction. And then this loops back up here, and then we do this again. And you start to see how they all interrelate into one cohesive customer journey. And I'm just going to put a question mark here for right now. Oof, drawing. We'll talk about that when we get there. But now notice that you do have one path that goes all the way through for somebody to the point of implementing the fulfillment. You got them. You did it. Congratulations. You made that work happen. You got somebody on board, and now you're actually working with them. Fantastic. What happens then? You all know. What happens when you get a customer? 1 month in, 3 months in, they're gone. Churn. Churn happens. This right here is how you combat churn. Oh, why did I choose to type this way? Churn. But you get the idea here. No more churn. What does that even mean? So you have to be thinking when you pull somebody on, what comes next? Alex Hormozi talks quite a bit about this in his stuff, the offers and leads and whatnot. It's basically, these ascension orders and the way you get somebody in and you then bring them back around. Ideally, what happens is this. It's a different idea, a different way of doing leads, because this is somebody now who's not just a warm lead, a hot lead. What they need from you is going to be different than what a cold person needs or a warm person needs. You turn them back around and get them into the next ascension or the next product or the next thing, right? I mean, how many times do you see that with physical products? When you buy a supplement from company X, you're going to start seeing emails and things from company X about their product that does something slightly different. Like you might have a focus supplement and then they have a digestive supplement, or you might start seeing things about other supplements or other products that they provide. You can use it to turn people. If you don't have additional products, you can use it to turn to some joint venture that you have with another company. So this concept of looping people around and keeping them in your ecosystem, not letting them leave, is huge, as you know. People will fall out at every one of these steps. That's nature. That just happens. The trick is to make it as little as possible, as you know. And so AI can help you. That's what I do. That's where I come in and I say, let's walk through this. Before you start just saying, I need this lead management system, and I need it to do voice, and I need it to do all these cool things. All of that's very possible, and I can help you with that. But if you're just simply throwing something at this board, it's not going to serve you well. You might get lucky. You have a 1 in 16 chance of finding the right place, 1 in 17 if you look at the turning. You might get lucky, but here's the thing. It doesn't need to be luck. You just need to look at these things and think about where you are. So when you're going through your core four, you go through your business, look at what you do for leads. Do you have a good idea for it? Do you communicate well internally and externally about what you're doing with those leads, what the point is, how you're trying to attract them? How are you doing implementing it? That's usually, again, that's a big one. And then what's next? How are you getting people into the nurture? Once you've got the lead and you're implementing all the right things under leads, do you have a good email sequence for nurturing? Do you have voice or text touch points? Are they within 5 minutes of getting them as a lead? There are all sorts of rules and things that you can play with. And those become the idea, and then the communication, and then the implementation. What's next? What about sales? What are you doing for that? How is that flowing for you? What's your implementation schedule look like? And then when you get over here to fulfillment and onboarding, which is a thing that people tend to forget. They like to do the first three, and then they forget that they actually have to do something. Once somebody buys, it's not just a matter of handing them a PDF and walking away most of the time. But, look at it and say, how am I doing? Do I have the right idea for fulfillment? Do I need to think of other things? And then how do I implement those? And then, of course, there's this last one. So let's talk a little bit more about this no more churn. It's as simple as what we just talked about, an ascension model. If you pull somebody in to a $25 a month school membership, maybe you have a free one, and then you go to the 25. The free to 25 is the churn. You reduce the churn. You don't let them drop out of the free. You entice them into, they're in the free, and now you go around here and you start enticing them and talking to them about the next level, the $25 level. And then from the $25 level, you're talking to them about the $150 or the $300 level, or one-on-one coaching, or whatever you have. And really, is there an end to this? Like if you get one-on-one coaching and it's $10,000, isn't there more that you could be doing? Sure. If you don't want someone to churn out and they're at that highest level and they're saying, I want more, and rather than letting them leave, maybe you provide more. Maybe you want to then have a $50,000 coaching level where you actually go on site and spend a month and you live with them. I don't know, whatever the case might be. You can always be looking at one more thing. And it's the same loop. It's the same process. But I do hope you see that each one of these sets revolves around one offer. Let me reinforce this. One. Oh, goodness, Gregory. I really need to do this on like a Mac or something with a pen. Okay, it's one offer, and then you take them the next thing, etc. Anyway, this is what I've been working from. So when I look at your business and we talk about where your gaps and opportunities are, I'm always big on fixing the gaps first because this is a single line flow. If you have a gap happening right here, you're not moving beyond that well. And so everything that follows is going to have a downside to it. It's going to fail or not produce effectively. You need to get rid of this and then move on and find the next one. Just happen to both be communication, but maybe it's the implementation of your fulfillment. I don't know. Let's talk about it. Find out where yours is. But when you take a look at your business from this standpoint, you'll be able to figure out where the problem points are. And I guarantee you have more than one. So what I recommend that you actually do, I saw this done by somebody else. I thought it was fantastic, is for each one of these 16 boxes, just assume those lines there because otherwise it'd be too many lines. What you want to do is put a smiley face. Wow, that is like a non-smiley face. Sorry. You get the idea. Put a smiley face onto the ones that are working well. Yep, I have good ideas for leads, for nurtures, and I actually implement my sequences really well. So there's another green smiley face. And then put a red smiley or a frown where you're not necessarily doing the right ones. Gives you a really good visual to work from. Just at a glance, you can start to see where I'm starting to fill things out. And then you have one for mediocre, by the way. So you have, yes, positive, no, not good. And then there's the I'm okay. By just glancing at it, you can take a look at the red ones. And the trick is to make all the red ones the next level up, which would be to the yellow or brown or whatever you want for the middle. And then to take the brown ones to the green. Don't try to jump right from red to green. It's going to be very difficult to do in most cases. What you need to do is, what does it take to take me up a level? Get all of them moving up. Eventually, and in short order, probably, you will have a bunch of green. It doesn't mean everything's perfect. It doesn't mean everything's working great. It just means everything's in a good spot. There's no major gaps. Then you can start looking at the opportunities that are available to you that AI can then provide. And the reason why I go this route is because if you don't, and you start, let's look at it this way. If you had a pipe and it was pretty caked with dirt, but water was coming through, wouldn't you do better removing the block in the pipe and then filling with water rather than trying to pour more water in? It's not the water coming out the bottom of a pipe is not a direct relationship to the water going in the top. If you have blockages in the middle, you could try to force water down through there, but if the blockage is there, it's stopping the flow. So remove the block, let the flow go, and now you can increase the water volume. So when you're removing a block, don't change anything. Just remove the block and see how it results in better things for you. If you have a block in your sales closing and you go from 5% to 10%, you're doubling your revenue. Your closing doubles without changing anything else. Now, if you can change and increase the number of leads, now you're multiplying that because instead of getting 5%, you're getting 10% of a bigger number. But you can't force more numbers through that 5% and expect great things to happen. So anyway, you get the idea. So now I've explained what it is. I've explained why we're doing it. Now it's a matter of implementing it, which I've kind of shown you how to do it. And then we can talk about what's next, which is getting rid of the gaps and then what's next, right? This model holds. It really does. And I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I'll catch up with you soon. Take care.